All right, good morning. Hello, strike soldiers, iron soldiers. My name is Sergeant First Class Aaron McEvers. I am the EOA for 2nd Brigade, 1st Armored Division. Today I've assembled a panel of speakers, and we will be discussing some of the more subtle forms of gender and sex discrimination. I'll start to my left and allow them to introduce themselves.
My name is Sergeant First Class Katrina Washington. I'm Division EO Advisor.
Good morning, my name is Sergeant Fredericks. I'm currently 137's Battalion Sergeant.
Good morning, my name is Staff Sergeant Roberto Paul. I am the 137 EOL.
Good morning, I'm Captain Adrian Nakakura. I'm the H2F dietitian.
Good morning, I'm Captain Carrie Green and I am the H2F physical therapist.
Good morning, my name is Captain Christina Sutton. I am the 11 Cav Squadron S2.
Excellent, welcome. Welcome. I'm looking forward to this discussion and to learn a little bit from each of you. So the purpose, we're going to come together, we're going to discuss subtle forms of discrimination. And Captain Sutton taught me something the other day when I approached this topic with her. And what was that, Captain Sutton?
It's not subtle at all. Like it's very, very in your face. It makes you second guess your leadership style. It makes you second guess your actions moving forward as a soldier. We're all leaders here, and it just makes you question how you should proceed.
Excellent. And I learned so much in just that brief encounter. You're right. It's not subtle to the person on the receiving end of the behaviors. When I use the term subtle, I'm talking to mainly people like myself who probably aren't informed, aren't aware, aren't paying attention. But when you're on the receiving end of those behaviors, it's anything but subtle. It makes you ask a lot of questions. And as EOAs, and Sergeant Washington can kind of back me up on this, when the discrimination is overt and explicit, our job is pretty easy and it's pretty clear cut. But, and this is why we brought you all together today to discuss this, when it's that maybe there is discrimination there, maybe this person said this to me because I'm a female, and it starts that questioning process going. And what I really want to learn from you all is some more specific examples of things that you have experienced in your time in the military, or slightly disparate treatment that maybe things were said to you because you're a woman and not necessarily a man. Some of the things I came across when I was doing some research for this, I came across a research article that stated that women are interrupted by men. Men tend to dominate conversations that they are involved in with women. And it's not just here in our setting or in personal settings, it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. They did 15 years of research on court transcripts, and they found that the 3 female justices on a 9-justice panel, them being interrupted by male speakers accounted for 65% of all interruptions. On the flip side of that, those 3 female justices only interrupted their male colleagues 4% of the time. That only accounted for 4%. So, and that's kind of, when we get into it, is there something there? Do we need to have the discussion? And we can certainly have discussions about causation, but today I'd really like to focus on the impact. How does it impact? And what I'm concerned with right now in my job is, how does it impact the teammates that I serve with? Some other things I came across, or things that I get a sense that they exist in the ether, so to speak, is rumors and gossip. If Sergeant McEvers was to go to a new unit, it is highly unlikely that his romantic interests or who he's seeing is not going to be a discussion for the group. Whereas I have been in units and I have seen that sometimes when a new female is assigned to a team, that's one of the earlier discussions. Is she married? Is she single? Is she seeing anybody? And I think that's absolutely, it's not necessarily explicit and it's not necessarily prohibited by regulation per se, but it's something that we probably need to get after and we need to stop. Given the context that gossip in the workplace is considered, contributes to a hostile work environment. Okay, so I absolutely think we need to have that discussion. And then I also have gotten a sense in my time in the military that women aren't all leadership styles aren't available to women, depending on the context. And what I mean by that is, I feel like as a male leader, I can be whatever type of leader I want. If I want to be assertive, if I want to be that dominant leader, so to speak, it's okay. But if I want to be that calm, rational mentor, that's okay as well. I get a sense that women are expected to be that nurturing mentor, whereas men, I feel that there is an expectation that it's okay if I'm that knife hand, assertive individual, you will get this done type leader. And what was your experiences with that, Captain Sutton? Because I know we spoke about that.
Yeah, so I previously was in command out at my previous duty location. And so just comparing, so I was the only female commander and my two counterparts were two male captains. So my leadership style, I am very assertive, but since I'm a female, I'm viewed as being aggressive. As opposed to my male counterparts, they were just assertive. They were confident, I was intimidating because my command voice is too loud as opposed to the males, they're using their big boy voice or they're using their command voice. The list continues. If the guy provided guidance to his subordinates, it's considered mentorship. As a female, then now all of a sudden I'm too soft. And it's just opposite ends of the spectrum, mainly based on our genders. Same leadership style, but as a female, I was told that I need to tone it down. My physical fitness level is too high, it's too intimidating, they can't meet it, but if a guy does it, my male counterpart, then he's a role model, he's a stereotypical male soldier, he's an all-American male soldier, and it's great for him, but it's taboo for me.
Would you please share with us how that impacted you as a leader during your tenure as a commander?
So it caused me to talk to a lot of my mentors and see to what extent that I need to adapt my leadership style. When it came to doing physical fitness with my soldiers, every morning doing PT with them, I was debating, I'm like, do I take the fast group, which is a group that I normally take? Do I take the slow group? But now I'm talking nonstop, and they're like huffing and puffing because we're running at like a 12-minute mile pace, and that's essentially my ruck pace. And so it just caused me to second guess everything that I would do moving forward. Me telling my first sergeant or my XO, like, these are the expectations, and when they don't meet it, it's like, do I counsel them, or now am I being too harsh? It just made me question a lot of things. If I didn't have my mentors, both within the unit and outside of the unit, both males and females, the males were extremely excited that a female was able to do everything that I was able to do, and my female mentors were like pretty much told me that I should report that leadership that I had.
Okay, all right, thank you for sharing that with us. You mentioned physical capabilities. I think Captain Green and Captain Nakakura can probably share a little bit of insight from their experience, and I'll be happy to hear it.
Right, so in my experience, I come from a medcom setting. So before I came to H2F, I had only been in the hospital. And in the hospital, there's many more females. So you don't notice as much of that gender bias there just because of the population. And right now I'm working on a primarily female team, but when I notice those subtle things the most is during PT. So for example, just soldiers unintentionally but automatically just assuming that I need help with certain things like pull-ups where I'm fully capable of doing it, and where you notice it is that they don't do the same if a guy is getting on the bar. It's when the female mounts the bar, that's when you notice that kind of behavior, and I think they mean well, but it's not necessarily appreciated. I don't know how you feel about it, Captain Green.
I've definitely encountered the same thing, that it's automatically expected that you definitely can't compete at the same level as the males, whether it's weightlifting. Maybe they automatically, well, you're gonna go to the line with the less weight or the easier challenge. So I think it's just kind of automatically assumed that's where you need to go. But from my experience, it's not just in the physical training realm. I feel like that's more expected. But what frustrates me the most is in simple tasks. If we are relocating offices, relocating equipment, furniture, anything, it's hard as a female to do the job when they don't believe you can move that desk or you can move that chair. Oh, no, let me do it. Well, I'm definitely capable of moving this desk with you or this piece of equipment outside. So it's a simple task. It's a job that needs to be done, that assume that you don't have the physical capabilities to do that, and I think that's frustrating because I feel like I can't contribute to the team as I should be able to, like the rest of the team members, when in fact I may have a greater physical capacity than some of my team members, but because of my gender, it's assumed and expected that I'm not able to do that.
Okay, awesome, thank you for sharing. And kind of when we're talking about capabilities, we're getting into the theme that I know Sergeant Washington had shared with me in some of our conversations about. I'm a soldier as well. It says U.S. Army on my uniform. On every uniform I wear, it also says U.S. Army. And I know you had shared with me, and either of you can kind of jump in. You talked about not being able to do your job when deployed.
I'll take this one.
Okay.
So, I've been in the Army almost 14 years. My first year in the Army, I was stationed at Fort Hood. As soon as I got there, I learned of the upcoming deployment to Iraq. And so I was excited, young PFC in the Army, happy to join and, ready to serve the country. And when we got there, I'm not to Yankee Supply. We found out that we would have to go on convoys to deliver supplies. And, I asked my male staff sergeant, I wanted to be a part of the convoys to help deliver supplies. And he kept pushing it off. Every time the opportunity came for me to go, he'd be like, oh no, I'll let you go on the next one. And the next one came, still, no, we'll send you on the next one. And then finally, like towards the end of the deployment, he told me, well, PFC, Paul, the reason why I didn't really want to put you on the road in harm's way is because you're a woman. He told me that as males, we don't want to put our women in harm's way. And that really made me feel like, what am I here for then if I can't do the same job that him and my other male counterpart could do? So the whole deployment, I stayed on the FOB doing basically all the supply paperwork. And it just really made me feel like I wasn't a part of the team.
Okay, absolutely, and I know you've got something similar to what you saw in Washington.
Yes, I was S1 NCOIC downrange, and part of our job was I was the male supervisor. So any male room activities, that's what we do. One of the FOBs was not getting their mail. They hadn't gotten it for almost a month, and I volunteered to take it as a supervisor, to take it out on the ring route with 82nd. All they had to do was put it in the back of one of their convoy vehicles, and then I'd ride one day, spin bolt deck and back, and my battalion commander said no, because I was a mother and a wife. And he said directly to me, because of me being a wife and a mother, he could not look my dad and my husband in the eyes or my children if something were to happen to me. So I got a letter from my dad and from my husband stating that I could go out on the convoy. Commander still would not. He forced one of his first sergeants to go on the convoy. That first sergeant not only had a young newborn at home, he also was married. So I didn't understand what the difference was. I'm a soldier just like everyone else, and that's my job. Literally, that's my job, to make sure male and morale were up.
And I find that story particularly incredible, especially when you share that you essentially solicited permission slips to do your job. And I find, if I apply a little bit of empathy, I could not imagine me in a similar situation or being put in a similar situation and having to ask my wife for a permission slip or my mom for a permission slip to be able to do the job that I've enlisted for, that I've sworn a contract for. So thank you very much for sharing. And I'm going to bring Sergeant Friedrichs in, who's, I'll admit to my personal bias, I've got a lot of respect for her, because as a 19-kilo armor crewman, she is one of the first, or were you the first? One of the first?
NCO.
Yeah, she was one of the first NCOs to volunteer to reclass to lead our next generation of gender-integrated armor crewmen. So I have a sense of some of the difficulties she might have encountered being one of the first females. She's currently the senior enlisted for Alpha Company 137, and if you would please share any kind of experience you may have had, either prior to becoming a tanker and joining the Armor community or post.
So I've been in for 17 years, and this topic, if I really sat down and thought about it, I have so many stories and incidences, situations that happen that relate to this topic. So like prior to this, I was an MP. So basically, I mean, there's so many times where you go PCS, you go TDY, whether it's NCOES or some other school. I knew coming there, you know, you have to start over every single time. You have to prove your worth. The way I've always looked at it, and this is just my opinion, my assessment, but males are given respect. They have to do something to lose that respect. Females, you have to earn the respect from the start. And that's just the way it's been. Is it fair? Is it right? No, because to me it's exhausting. So every time I PCS or go to a school, you gotta start over, you gotta actually present yourself a certain way, you have to prove yourself, and you have to earn the respect, not just from like your leaders and your peers, but I have to earn respect from soldiers, you know, my soldiers as well. So many incidences, I could think about, you know, this all day. When I was an instructor, I had an infantry NCO that would blatantly disrespect me in front of the class, and he told me it was because I was a female, and he did not want a female leader over him, telling him what to do. On the trail, as a drill sergeant, you'd have privates, male privates. It didn't happen all the time, but it was sometimes, or maybe I just didn't know all of them that felt this way, but I wasn't seen as a drill sergeant to some male privates. I was seen as a female drill sergeant. Stuff like that. So you have to, I guess, conduct yourself a certain way. Coming here when I reclassed, like I knew coming here that I was gonna have to, again, start over. I'd have to prove myself, this and that. And it's not just physical. Everybody always gets caught up on the physical aspect of females in the Army, but it's a mentality as well. You know, is she too soft, you know, fragile? Oh, I gotta watch what I say around her. Oh my goodness, like I was here, like within the first week I went to gunnery, and some, you know, new female in the unit that was not accustomed to having females other than like medics or whatever. And I remember I was walking past a group of individuals in the company, and they were joking around, whatever. I didn't hear exactly what they were saying, but it was obvious because when I walked by them, they were like, shh, you know, like, here she comes, EO sharp walking violation, don't say anything to offend her. And I was like, oh my goodness. You know, that's just one example. I'm very much aware, since I reclassed to 19 kilo, that there are individuals out there, other 19 kilos, that are not so welcoming to me being here. I'm aware that for the past 2+ years, my performance as a platoon sergeant, and now I'm the first sergeant, I'm aware that there's people that have been tracking my experience here and have been wanting me to fail. It's not a lot that I know of, you know. For the most part, I think the Armor community has been very welcoming and very supportive, but I am aware that there's individuals out there that they don't want to see me succeed. But it is what it is, I guess.
Well, I'm not certainly one of those that wants you to fail. I will admit to being inspired, and every time I talk to you, when we talk tanks and the Armor community, I get a sense that you fit right in, and that there's no issues whatsoever. But you mentioned something that like I said, I look forward to learning from you all, and I certainly have. But you mentioned something that I never probably thought about. in that, and I'll open this back up to everyone, PCSing is stressful to a degree for everybody, but I never thought that perhaps it does create more of a burden on female soldiers or female leaders in that they've got to work that much harder to prove themselves all over again. I think there's always that new person on the team feeling when you get to a new team that's a universal experience. But I never for once considered that maybe it is harder for some females, especially when coming to male-dominated units. Do you all have any experiences with that? Anything you could add to that?
Yeah.
I'll share.
Please.
So absolutely. I think, as Captain Nakakura had said, it was a little easier. Well, it was definitely a lot easier integrating into new units when we were with MedCom. So again, it's such a high percentage of females, and everybody, for the most part, you go in, you do your job. It's medical, and that's what's expected of you. However, with my experience being prior enlisted, and then as a senior captain now, throughout my career, other than that MedCom piece, it's been much more difficult to integrate into the units. And it doesn't matter if it was as a PFC or now as a senior captain, it's about establishing your importance and your significance within your job as a female. So I may have had the same training, the same level of education, maybe a greater level of education than my male counterparts, but I feel that when I come into a new unit, I have to prove myself, as Sergeant Fredericks had said, that I have to establish myself as a hard worker, as a good officer, as that confident, assertive female, and not that to show them or to break that stigma that I'm incompetent or I'm fragile. So it's definitely a challenge, I think, no matter what rank you're in.
Okay, awesome, thank you for sharing, ma'am. So now we need to get into I've learned personally, I thank you all for sharing your experiences. Now we need to transition to, okay, if we raise awareness and we make our teammates more aware of that, I don't want to say subtle because it's not subtle to the person that receives the behavior, but that more vague and more ambiguous discrimination. What can we do to coach and mentor the next generation of soldiers or our teammates on how we can reduce the number of instances of this happening? Because my end state, what I want is I want all the females that serve, all the women that serve, to get the same sense of community that I get within the Army. That's what I want. I'm moving towards diversity is great, but let's be inclusive. Everybody has the same experience largely when they serve, and it's not separated by gender. So what are some things that you would recommend we do to try and correct some of these forms of discrimination?
From my experience, prior to this in the MP Corps, like, reclassing to 19 kilos, it was very eye-opening when I got here. As an MP, we've been co-ed for decades. Even though that there are stereotypes and stigmas and out there against females, but what we did before to squash it, it didn't necessarily take a female leader to set the example, so to speak. It took, other junior soldiers or NCOs seeing a male leader or NCO being like, setting the standard, like, this is females, we work together, there shouldn't be an issue, you treat everybody the same, there's one standard, end of story. To me, that's it was very effective. Coming here, once we had an influx of female soldiers coming in, the male leadership was very timid to make corrections on soldiers or female soldiers, so they'd come to me like expecting me to do it. That and just like how to deal with female soldiers, it was very eye-opener coming here. it took some time because the male leaders were very standoffish, very timid, how to interact with females. When we went to the field, when we did gunnery, all those things, I'm used to the females, you live in the same sleeping area, the same environment as the males. When I came here at first, there was a question like we have to separate. So like tankers, we sleep on the tanks. So where are the females gonna sleep? So all the male soldiers are sleeping on the tanks and the females are having a separate sleeping area in tents. What are we telling everybody? What are we showing? So that was something that I was like, that's imperative that we have to set the example that, like if me as a sergeant first class or a brand new female private coming in, I'm guaranteeing that brand new private wants to be treated just like everybody else. She does not want to be singled out and like treated differently because, it puts this awkward pressure and light on her. And then I've seen it happen many times before. When this happens, it creates a resent from the male soldiers. So when you see female soldiers being catered to and special treatment versus the male soldiers, they're out there at work, they're on detail and the females are, being, coddled, so to speak, it creates resentment in that unit. So I think that's just imperative, like to move on from this situation being a problem in the future in units. It's just male and female leadership, setting the right example for everybody, like showing, if we wanna talk about equality, we have to like actually execute and like, there is no difference, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. I concur 100%, obviously. And by reading body language in the room, I think we all do. Does anyone else have any other suggestions or ideas for how we get after this?
I think it's very important for leadership, absolutely, to set that example. But then in any instance, regardless of your position, of your leadership role, that when you as a male or a female see that happening, to call it out right there, to make it known, like, what you said, that was not appropriate. Or if it's happening to you, like as a female, like, can I please finish what I'm saying? Or would you have said that if I were a male? But to nip it in the bud, to stop it right there, bring attention to it regardless of what level you're at. So it doesn't just get swept under the rug and it's just another just accepted part of our culture, but we bring more attention to it just across the board.
Absolutely, I agree. I especially like what you said, and I think an indicator of a strong organizational culture is a culture or an organization where, regardless of rank, you can have those uncomfortable conversations. Because let's be honest, I have female leaders in here who probably are more inclined to have those painful conversations with even people a rank or two above them. But when we get down to the PFC and the specialist level, we as leaders, we've got to acknowledge how difficult that, or how much courage that takes for a young female, newer soldier to challenge a sergeant or a staff sergeant or first to be like, hey, I really feel like what you did was inappropriate, or what you said. But that is an indicator of a good culture, is if we can have those uncomfortable conversations without fear of retaliation or reprisal. You're not gonna suffer from it. In fact, we're both gonna be better, or the organization is gonna be better, because as a sergeant first class, maybe I got corrected by a female specialist or PFC. Hey, Sergeant, I notice, or I feel, or I think what you did, probably you wouldn't have done that to a male soldier, and I would appreciate it if it wasn't repeated. I think that would be awesome. I think that's where we need to arrive. Does anyone have anything else that they'd like to offer for the good of the group? Any closing statements?
I think as female leaders and just females in general, and this is not just for females, but I think with these younger junior enlisted females, just us empowering them and telling them that they're strong, they're smart, they're capable, they can do everything
they deserve dignity and respect at
Right.
all times. Yes.
So coming from, us as strong leaders, sharing that message with them so that they start believing it is important as well.
Okay, absolutely. Powerful stuff. I love it. I want to keep this going. Does anybody have anything else? But I think we're going to wrap it up for time purposes.
I think one thing, that to sit there and empower our younger soldiers or even our leaders, they still may be timid to go ahead and step and challenge what's being said. I think those clarifying questions, what did you mean by that, sir, ma'am, sergeant? What was your intent when you said that? You're not challenging it and you're still trying to clarify so you can understand. I think the Army imposing the 24-hour hotline for EO, I think that also is a great avenue for anything, that they can even just call and ask for clarifying questions. If not, if they wanted to report because they don't have that support or they don't feel they have that support in their leadership. I think that's also a really great avenue.
Absolutely. And you bring up a great point. Questioning technique, effective questions can probably help that. If I'm an offender, if a potential offender of some of these behaviors that we're talking about, sometimes if you ask the right questions, you can get that offender to discover for himself or herself, oh yeah, maybe I did frame this poorly or I did handle this poorly. So yes, great point. If someone is reluctant to directly confront somebody about an instance of behavior, effective questioning is another way to kind of circumvent. Awesome stuff. I learned so much today. I want to thank you all for being a part of it. I would love to keep this going. My hope is that this spurs further conversation down at the lowest unit level, and we get people talking about it, and we make people aware of it. So on behalf of my panel, I'd like to thank everybody for listening in today, and have a great day.